What if I told you that failure wasn't the end, but the beginning of something greater? That every setback you face could be the very thing that pushes you forward? Let me show you how one person turned their deepest failures into their greatest strength. The man sat alone in his small, dimly lit apartment, his shoulders slumped, and his eyes lost in the abyss of a past that felt far too heavy to carry. The world outside seemed to move on, but inside he was stuck. Every failure he had faced echoed in his mind, the weight of each setback pressing down on him like a pile of bricks. It wasn't just the professional disappointments, the failed business ventures, the missed opportunities, the countless nights spent working toward something that never came to fruition. It was also the personal failures, the friendships that had slipped through his fingers, the relationships that had crumbled, the moments when he had let down the people who believed in him most. He felt as if every step he had taken had led him to this dark, suffocating place. He was convinced he had nothing left to give, nothing left to prove. The internal struggle was the hardest part. Every day was a battle between the nagging voice that told him to keep going and the one that whispered, "Why bother? You'll only fail again." It felt like his entire life had become defined by his mistakes, a constant reminder of all the times he had tried and failed, of all the opportunities that had slipped from his grasp. He had watched others succeed, moving forward while he stayed behind, trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and shame. It wasn't just disappointment. It was the feeling of being unworthy, as if he had somehow missed his chance, as if he was destined to fail at everything he touched. The desire to give up was overwhelming. He no longer had the energy to fight, to keep pushing, to keep trying. It was easier to retreat into the shadows, to let the weight of failure crush him into submission. What was the point of trying again? Every attempt he made felt like a repeat of the last. More failures, more heartbreak, more broken dreams. He thought back to all those moments when he had believed success was just around the corner, only to see it slip further away each time. Each failure had chipped away at his spirit, and now, all that remained was a hollow shell of someone who once believed they could make something of themselves. The future seemed bleak, and he could no longer see a way out. His dreams, once so vibrant and full of promise, now felt like distant memories, fading with each passing day. The road ahead was uncertain, and the further he walked, the more he felt as if he were walking toward the edge of a cliff, ready to fall into the abyss. It wasn't just failure that hurt. It was the relentless sense of defeat, the thought that no matter how hard he tried, no matter how much he wanted to succeed, he would always be left with nothing but disappointment. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to sit in the pain of it all. He allowed himself to feel the full weight of his failures, to accept that he was broken, that his dreams seemed out of reach. He didn't have the strength to pretend anymore. He couldn't deny it. He felt as though he had reached the end of the road with no clear path forward, no way to move past the failures that had defined him. It was easier to sit there numb and motionless than to face another day of struggle and disappointment. But little did he know, this moment of surrender would become the catalyst for his transformation. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize that you are capable of rising again. The young man sat in his dim apartment, overwhelmed by the weight of his failures. Every setback seemed to build upon the last, leaving him feeling stuck. His dreams felt out of reach, and despite all his efforts, rejection and disappointment were constant companions. He was consumed by self-doubt, questioning if he was cut out for success. The thought of starting over seemed impossible. One evening, a quiet knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Standing there was an old friend, offering a kind, understanding smile. The friend simply asked, "Mind if I come in?" And without expecting it, the young man let him in. They sat in silence, and for the first time in a long while, the young man didn't feel pressured to talk. The friend was just there, offering his presence. After a while, the friend spoke gently. "I've been where you are. I felt like nothing would work. like I was doomed to fail. The young man looked up, surprised by the honesty. Instead of offering cliches, his friend spoke from experience. Failure isn't the end. It's a part of the journey, a necessary part of growth. It's in moments of failure that we actually have the opportunity to change. His friend's words resonated deeply. He had always seen failure as the end, but now he began to realize it wasn't about defeat. It was about learning. The friend continued, "Think of it like this. A seed must break apart to grow into a tree. Sometimes you must hit rock bottom before you rise." This new perspective shifted something in him. He understood that his failures were not signs of defeat, but rather lessons that could guide him forward. His friend reassured him, saying, "The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simply whether they keep going after failure. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you." For the first time in a long time, the young man felt a flicker of hope. Failure wasn't an end, but a part of the process. As his friend stood to leave, he placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Take it one step at a time. Failure isn't something to be afraid of. It's what you do with it that matters." With that, the young man watched his friend go, feeling a small but powerful shift inside himself. He wasn't sure where the road ahead would take him, but he was ready to take the next step. In the days following his conversation with his friend, the young man began to see his failures not as insurmountable obstacles, but as valuable lessons. The weight of his past mistakes, once crushing, started to feel lighter, like a necessary part of his journey. He had spent so much time fearing failure that he had never realized how much it had to teach him. It wasn't an immediate change. There were moments of doubt, and the familiar voices of fear crept back in. But with each day, he began to embrace failure as something that could guide him forward, making him stronger. He reflected on his past disappointments, the failed businesses, the broken relationships, and the dreams that seemed out of reach. At first, the memories stung. But slowly he started asking himself, what did I learn from these experiences? He realized that his failures had shown him what didn't work. Each path had led to the same dead end, but now he could see that failure had revealed flaws in his approach, helping him learn what didn't align with his values and strengths. Failure had acted as a teacher, guiding him toward better methods and approaches. As he reflected, he also understood the importance of resilience. Each time he fell, he got back up, sometimes with difficulty, but always pressing on. Failure had taught him perseverance, the ability to push forward, even when the road ahead was uncertain. That resilience became an asset, one that would carry him through future challenges. More than that, failure had given him self-awareness. He had confronted his weaknesses, limitations, and fears, things he had once tried to avoid. But now he saw those weaknesses not as things to fear, but as areas for growth. His failures had stripped away illusions, revealing who he truly was and what he was capable of. The self-doubt that once paralyzed him began to fade, replaced by authentic confidence. Through this reflection, he realized that failure wasn't his enemy, it was a guide. Each failure had been an opportunity to learn about himself, the world, and what truly mattered. It had taught him humility, showing him that setbacks were part of success, and through those setbacks, growth happened. With this new perspective, he approached his goals with curiosity rather than fear. Instead of worrying about what might go wrong, he focused on what he could learn with each step. He didn't need all the answers. What mattered was action, openness to lessons, and trusting that each failure brought him closer to success. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, he now faced it with quiet confidence. Failure no longer felt like a punishment. It was a partner in his journey. He knew setbacks were inevitable, but instead of fearing them, he welcomed them, knowing that each failure held the key to unlocking his potential. In embracing failure, he found strength and discovered the true power of growth. With each new day, a quiet but powerful shift took place within him. The weight of past failures, though still present, no longer defined him. He had learned to see failure not as the end, but as a vital part of the process. Reflecting on his journey, he realized that his struggles were not stumbling blocks, but stepping stones guiding him toward something greater. It wasn't about avoiding failure, but moving forward despite it, using each setback as a lesson rather than a deterrent. Now, It was time to embrace persistence. It wasn't glamorous or easy. There were moments when doubt crept back in and fear of failure resurfaced. But instead of retreating, he moved forward. He faced challenges with resolve, understanding that persistence wasn't about perfection, but about showing up. No matter how many times he had fallen before, the road was still tough and success didn't come overnight. But now every challenge felt less intimidating. Mistakes were no longer signs of defeat, but opportunities for growth. Each misstep was a chance to learn something new about his goals, methods, and most importantly, himself. One project had consumed his focus for months. Despite his effort, the early results were disappointing. In the past, he would have given up, but this time he didn't let setbacks discourage him. Instead of seeing challenges as proof of failure, he saw them as clues pointing toward necessary adjustments. He refined his approach with each failure, analyzing what went wrong, making changes, and trying again. Success wasn't about avoiding mistakes, it was about persistence in the face of them. Every time he persisted, he gained more clarity about his path. The more setbacks he faced, the stronger his resolve became. He no longer saw himself as someone who failed, but as someone learning, growing, and improving with every attempt. Slowly, things began to change. The project started to take shape. Challenges remained, but they no longer seemed insurmountable. Each small victory was a testament to his persistence. The confidence that had once been distant began to return, not because he had succeeded, but because he had learned to trust the process and keep moving forward. His growth was reflected not only in his work, but in his attitude toward life. He no longer saw obstacles as roadblocks, but as invitations to adapt. He had become someone who didn't run from failure, but embraced it as part of success. His journey wasn't about perfection, but about persistence. With each challenge, he realized that persistence was the true key to success. It wasn't about never stumbling, it was about getting back up over and over again. And with each rise, he grew stronger, more capable, and more confident. The setbacks that once felt like defeat were now just another chapter, teaching him resilience and the power of never giving up. Failure, he realized, wasn't something to fear. It was the greatest teacher on the road to success. The man stood at the edge of the room, his gaze fixed on the work he had poured his heart into over the past months. It wasn't perfect. He had long accepted that perfection was a myth, but it was his. It reflected everything he had learned and fought through, each failure bringing him here. He smiled softly, a sense of quiet pride swelling within him. It wasn't the smooth success he had once envisioned, but a deeper, more resilient confidence. Looking back, he realized how far he had come. The failures that had once haunted him were no longer symbols of defeat. They were the building blocks of his success, each one adding strength and wisdom. In the beginning, he feared failure, convinced that each misstep was a sign of weakness. But now those failures were part of his story, shaping him into someone stronger, more capable, and more aware. The early days of his journey felt distant now. He still remembered the frustration, doubts, and crippling fear with each setback. At times the road seemed too long, the climb too steep. But each time he faced failure, he grew a little stronger. He had learned to keep moving forward, even when the path seemed unclear. Though doubt still crept in, failure no longer felt like something to fear. It was part of the process, a necessary element of growth. In moments of reflection, he saw how failure had shaped him. Each mistake taught him something, sometimes harsh, sometimes subtle, but always making him better. The failures forced him to confront his weaknesses, but instead of breaking him, they forged him into someone whole, aware of his strengths and limits. His resilience, built in the fire of failure, was now a shield for whatever came next. Failure was never the end. It was a step forward, a lesson in perseverance. The more he embraced it, the more he grew. Success was no longer a destination, but a continuous journey with both triumphs and setbacks. What mattered now wasn't whether he failed, but how he responded. He stopped seeing failures as proof of inadequacy. Instead, they were guides, refining his approach and strengthening his resolve. He was no longer the person who saw failure as an obstacle. The man who had once been defeated was now empowered by the very things that held him back. His failures became the fuel for his growth, the stepping stones leading him to deeper understanding and strength. What he had once feared had become his greatest asset. His success wasn't built on avoiding failure, but on his willingness to face it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. He wasn't afraid of the challenges ahead. Each failure was an opportunity to grow, to become better. Failure was no longer something to avoid. It was something to embrace. It was the key to becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Taking a deep breath, he felt peace settle over him. The journey wasn't over. There would always be more challenges. But now, he faced them with quiet confidence, knowing that failure was no longer his enemy. It was his ally, guide, and source of strength. With this understanding, he knew there was nothing he couldn't face. Failure had made him who he was, and it would continue to propel him forward, one step at a time.